welcome to the stage.
Thank you, thank you. Good to see you all in the real life after all of this time. And yeah, let's get this party started. JP? Ooh. Yeah. So to introduce myself, pretty much 20 years I've been, yeah, exactly, 20 kilos ago. For 20 years, actually, I've been working with the marketplaces. But just recently, 4 years ago, I found out that actually I've been working for SaaS-enabled marketplaces. That's how they call nowadays what we've been doing back then 20 years, some 20 kilos ago. And idea for me presenting you something today was sharing the experience from the 3 companies I've been working, where we have very much went for the scalability of the business, mainly on the international level. There are 2 positive examples and then 1 example which didn't go so great on the internationalization side, but at the end of the day, it was a great learning. So, bit about other things who I am. I've been living here in Finland for 15 years, so I do actually speak quite well Finnish, and when you need a guide in the evening, call me in. I know the place is still in Helsinki pretty well. Since 4 years living in UK, still missing Finland greatly. I have a son living here, so quite well connected still to Finland, and because I've been educated here as well, having friends and families. Count on me for the evening tonight. And as I've been very much into the civil aviation, I will be talking about tailwinds and headwinds for how you scale the marketplaces. I will take a particular focus on the internationalization, which is one of the ways of the scaling. And I know there are quite a few on the audience who are very much into the internationalization. But for those who are not into internationalization, think of the internationalization as an example of how you want to grow the business. So find the relevance this way. So what is this Google and Wikipedia is saying about the scalability? So they say a lot of words, but so in a way, it refers to the meaningful growth of a company in which profits go up as the expenses go down. Jesus, they are very good on explaining something so simple, yeah? We all learn here today, you pay back the flight here. Yeah, there is about a certain art how to make the business grow without encouraging the cost and preferably encouraging the marginal costs and get that gain which comes totally from the scale of your operation, because that's what the scaling is about. And internationalization, going for other markets, is one of the ways to get that scale. And that scale later on pays back in the product development or other aspects of your fixed cost. So when we were working that 20 years ago at Mascus, and Mascus, for those who doesn't know it, it's a heavy machinery marketplace. As you can see, we had the 6 categories from farm equipment to the truck and trailers, then heavy machinery as a tractor, excavator, so the construction and plant. But as you can see, this has been a portal operating in so many languages. And over the time, you could see the results of our growth. Here you can see the unique visitors, number of the ads online, and customers. This data team, I believe, sent me like 5 years ago, so that's the oldest I have it, but that's the period pretty much where I've been involved in the business, or just shortly after that. So you can see how the internationalization affected this one. But there is a lot of interesting details in a way. What were the headwinds back then? So historically, we started in the 3 Nordic countries, and we added UK as a Nordic in a way, and this was our own business. Business owned by us, and so on. Then guy who have run Alma Media back then, they came up with the idea of franchising the concept. You need to go internationally, go in the franchise model. And then from around 2011, we were everywhere in Europe. Then we have opened more global operations. Thanks God, I was doing that job. I have been in 40 countries around the world. So I got my share of that fun as well. But you can see amazing growth of the international presence. And you have to remember, we are talking 2004, 2011, quite short period of time. What were the headwinds, tailwinds here? If you think about this heavy machinery, it is very expensive items that are being traded. And what is very interestingly, machines are being traded internationally. You might be eager to go to the UK to buy some excavators to do the job, let's say, in Poland. One easy example. Or if you are a machinery dealer in Germany, you might be interested to sell it internationally. Finns have been selling that equipment to the neighbors in Estonia. Sometimes machines were going towards Sweden or towards UK, very much international business. So kind of by the nature, the subjects were very international. So when you look about scalability on international scale, look on this extra value here. One another tailwind, I think what I very much stress, that Maskus has been built in Finland. And not because me being Polish patriotic on Finland, but there were two aspects very important there. Finland is multilingual country, as you might have noticed. Sometimes you see there's two signs on the street, yeah? One is in Finnish, one is in Swedish, and that's why many businesses from the day one, they build the multilingual pages. They serve many languages. There is a skill itself how to actually design multilingual pages from the start, particularly when they need to be so deeply classified, like for heavy machinery. Another thing, like many other Nordic countries, Finland is a small economy, wealthy, well organized, but still very small. So the natural movement is actually go abroad to cover your overheads and make sure that you are gaining the economics of scale. So Finland definitely has been helping. But what has been actually particularly helping us in the early days and when entering the market were two aspects. One was very important, that actually we were SaaS-enabled marketplace. Because what we were doing, we were, besides selling the typical marketplace products like advertisement, listings, extra visibility, locator, blah, blah, blah. We even have the magazine actually back then as a promotional tool. We were selling actually the tools for our dealers. So what we were telling to the dealers, we will make you nice multilingual web page. You put your items over there to present it to your customers. At the same time, they will land on on our marketplace. So of course, we got the dealers who were continuously updating their own web page. They were happy to pay us our monthly subscription, and they were already content on the marketplace. That was our value added brought to those dealers. And interestingly, they sometimes didn't know where they made the sales, you know? They sell them through Maskus. They were happy, we were happy. We were charging them fair fee, and that was a good deal for everyone. And over the time, we have managed to build the marketplace without massive struggle for, you know, having the content back then updated and so on. Again, you have to think this is like 2005, so there was a fairly innovative area of doing the things this way. And that, of course, led to us to have actually quite a close relation with many manufacturers, because we were able to serve them internationally. So we have also account executive sales, so we could get the deal with Volvo and roll it out across the other countries. So that was one aspect which I think is very interesting always in this area. Another, I think, very interesting aspect was the fact that we were developed in the franchise model. You know, when you are having your fully owned business, there are always more and less important countries. We ended up at some point having like 20, 30 partners, and in a way, we always treat them like internal customers. So we have to serve them well, scale the business in such a mentally good way that we could keep them as a partner, and they would be eager invested in that brand that were our common brand. Of course, we were not perfect, but we get a lot of these effects of the scale coming from, I believe, quite good attitude towards everyone in that Maskus family. We have a lot of global sales actions, global sales in general, quite international SEO. And then, of course, we were quite much strategizing also on the European level. When we were opening Germany, which is one of the biggest actually market for heavy machinery, we knew that if we want to be successful, we better have the Eastern Europe, because then we have the value proposition that we could offer very important as German dealers. Otherwise, our local competitors like Mobile.de, they would just eat us, and the dealers would just laugh at us. Who are those Finnish joke guys coming here and bringing me the value? But then we were able to bring the value by our international presence. And Mobile yet suddenly they start opening like Eastern European web pages for the traders there. So that was definitely a tailwinds coming from the product, coming from the specifics of the market. What were definitely like a headwinds, this has been a niche product category. If you think about it, how big is the machinery sales in the whole automotive? Volume-wise, not so big. But still, if you run the show properly, you can make it quite efficient and quite well grown. It has been quite much requiring B2B specific knowledge. So when we were setting up the sales, you know, and a majority of our partners were coming from the marketplaces, they knew more how to sell the audience rather than sell to the dealers. But over the time, automotive sector also starts selling this kind of web tool solutions, and then the whole part even out. Another thing, over the time, there are some global effects, but they are very much regional. If you think about trade for Europe, it could affect the euro, but when we went to the US or we tried to enter the Asia, we didn't have that effect. We didn't have that value, and we already had so much to do in one area. So there are some, of course, headwinds coming that later on with the scale and how far you can go. And just to show you on this map, that you see there were on the plans some areas there, but we not always succeed in all of the countries, to be fair. Another company where I work, and it's more of the typical marketplace, was Erento, part of the Russmedia. So this was a typical online rental marketplace, yeah? And back then, this is where I arrived there. They told me, you see, there is one thing we wanted to tell you, actually. Actually, you have 2 weeks to decide it, whether you want to keep the salespeople in Berlin, or we just close them and start somewhere else. So I did sign up for internationalization, not for the great sales there around, but I very quickly learned that the biggest advantage of that product was actually its team, who have been maybe demotivated, maybe needed TLC and some efficiency, but at the end of the day, that team was the power of the growing that sales, which I will tell you more. And meantime, you know, we were, of course, drawing the plans where we could grow, and the green one is showing where we could grow. So it was fairly ambitious ideas, but we had Germany and UK. And actually, I think today, and then we start having actually Finland at some point of time. Today, there is only DACH countries in Erento. Great team, but they didn't internationalize that much, at least at my time. And why was it so? As you can see Europas größte Mietportal. Sorry for my crappy German. What were the tailwinds? Like I said, we had amazing team, and team managed to grow in the certain area. But they managed to grow because, you know, we start taking care of them, motivating them, show them through TLC, but also show them different way of the efficiency and scaling within that categories. So, you know, we went after the other subsectors of the categories. Like suddenly we were having not only the party and events, but we were also having a teams, entertainment being possible to rent through the platform. So all of this going extra in the categories increase the scale, but it's very much exponential road. And for us, the big game changer for the scalability is actually this book, Predictable Revenue by Aaron Ross. I'm sure many of you have read it. I recommend it. It's £5 on the Amazon. Very simple, very quick read, very obvious on selling SaaS, but very much applicable also to the marketplaces and the scalability. And at Erento, we manage only as far expand as DACH countries, so the same language. And what were the headwinds? Because there were actually quite a few headwinds. Back then, and it's still today, not all rental categories are quite international. You realize that, yeah? Campers are the great one. You can rent the camper, let's say, from UK while you are in Germany. And the cars, some of it. The rest is very multi-local at the end of the day. So there is not that much you can do unless you very much go internationally. Already, we didn't want to go after the flats. That market has been already very well, so to say, served by Airbnb and others. So we have the rest of the categories. We had a fairly outdated platform already by that time. And when you have to make the investment in the platform, going internationally is actually a very bad idea. If your product is not ready, or even your product needs the proper revamp, don't make any other investment. You just make a huge chaos on top of everything. And what else? What we very quickly learned that platform, if it's not designed properly from the day one, rebuild it or refix the issues that came out from too quickly rollout of other countries will create you even more challenges. Like basic stuff like the British postcodes were never served by our platform by then. And to rebuild that part was taking so much effort, and if we want to survive on our main market, which has been Germany, we have to really focus in this area. So another learning I would say here comes from the fact that focus where your bread is, but then know, are you truly ready for internationalization or not? If you are not ready, just cut it. The growth will not come from something which is way much more complex, and the moment you are structurally badly built, then you have no chance. So I ended up on closing actually UK operation at some point of time. It was just a waste of money. Waste of people enthusiasm, waste of focus to the extent that was just distracting our core market. And yeah, Erento is doing still great. We've guys bought the portal. Back then, my head of sales is today the CEO. So we have done some amazing amount of work. But the internationalization-wise, at that time, the year 2014, it was no go. And for quite obvious, in a way, reasons that you discover once you analyze your business. And today I'm working on at Booksy, which is health and beauty booking app, and the marketplace. It's another example of SaaS-enabled marketplace. We are selling someone a solution to take the appointments. Once you are part of the platform, we will get you new customers. But our core value proposition and our revenue will come from the fact that you are using our tools to manage your business, particularly taking the appointments, which is the most difficult part of whole service sector often as well. So you have business app, web for the business, and of course tablets and so on, all possible channels. And the clients, they have the Facebook, Instagram, even directly booking from Google, but the key thing is actually the client app, because the client app is something that everyone carry in their pockets. So Mascus as a machinery marketplace is, like I said, 9 countries. We open also a few more countries meantime that we closed them because they just didn't grow as fast as we want. So we ended up being in 9 countries. 1 country has been done by the acquisition, but the rest has been kind of by us setting our own operation there. And as you can see, the green one symbolizing here the potential of that category. It's quite broad category at the end of the day. It's not as niche as machinery, and it's also not as limited as the rental. It can be very much multi-local at the end of the day here, and there are basically no internationalization cross-category effects here. And what I think is quite interesting in the case of Mascus and Booksy was this way how you are connecting the value that you are building for your paying client and how you link it with the clients of the client. Yeah? And how does it all lead to the success of the marketplace? If you think it this way, first you have the merchant. Merchant is being presented with the system. They are getting a very useful app that they can manage basically pretty much whole business, from the appointments to the checkout to the communicating to your clients. But once they are introducing, oh, here are my new booking channels, what they will quickly realize that the clients love the app and the app loves the clients, and it all pays back actually to the merchants, because merchants are gaining an increased frequency of the visits through that particular channel. And then what else further we learn over the time, that once merchants push it to the clients, the app, there is this frequency of the visit effect, but then the clients go to the clients and start recommending the Booksy app to their friends. Also, since we have all of the listings, availability and so on, we are creating the marketplace. Yeah, on the web page, SEO starts picking up nicely and so on. And then client to the merchant referral acquisition goes further. Suddenly, our clients are saying to the other provider, why cannot book with you? Why don't you have Booksy? And this is what you can see actually some of the results. This is the growth of the bookings. This is actually average acquisition over the time once the presence of the app is growing in the area. And here are our customer acquisition costs. Of course, they will go down, because the moment you are acquiring more customers per sales rep, bam, you are in the amazing growth scenario. So that's kind of our recent story. As I said, very well done product. That is a success. Something that is done from the beginning with the focus on the many countries makes it easier, but also you need to quite well follow up where your clients are and where your clients are. So like lots of barbers, they are so hot about the Instagram and Facebook. So we have developed with Facebook group direct booking from the Facebook and Instagram. And we can always claim being the first company who have done it. Then actually Google contacted us and they start making the reserve with Google. And you can directly now book from the search engines using our engine. Yeah? Of course, the guys have rolled it out to rest of our competitors, but we've been sitting in the front seat to make it. The whole concept of the SaaS-enabled marketplace, you can see how nicely it benefits the business. What are the kind of a typical headwinds here? If you think about scalability, you still need to pay attention to the city-by-city model at the end of the day, yeah? Because the business, no one will travel, let's say, to Tampere to get a haircut. Unless you are there on the business trip, yeah, you might go for a haircut, which maybe even a haircut is too far, but maybe nails, something smaller, yeah? Something of the less risk. So still, city-by-city model for the big scale requires a certain mix of the acquisition channels. And of course, the trickiest part is always how much effort you put on the internationalization and the biggest market you want to win and the rest of the market. So the portfolio management is tricky sometimes. Like we have seen in Erento, our key market, Germany, was taking the resources from what we needed on other markets. And here sometimes we feel the same, that our key US market is thus create the challenges, because that's the market we want to win first, yeah? So yeah, and like every scale up, you know, teething problems. So just to sum it up, product needs to be really up for scratch, up for it, and you better think about your growth or internationalization when you are designing the product. At least make sure that languages, localization, flexibility of the payments and so on is taken into consideration. Unique and universal value proposition. If you can bring the international value proposition, that's great. Unless you have something which makes it a true unicorn, so some sort of strong delivery model, then what's the point growing international? That's why so many job sites haven't grown actually international, except a few, of course. If you do not have the right organized support or set of the team dedicated for internationalization, again, it will be the issue of the competition for the resources. No one really dedicated, no one thinking about that, so that's another aspect. And at the end of the day, when you grow and scale international, pay attention to the culture. I think both successful companies I've mentioned there, they had a very strong culture, and it was like a Muscus way or highway, or Buxy way or highway. This kind of attitude does help a lot. Cool. Any questions?
Yeah, we might have time for one or two quick questions. I could start. Did you have it in Finland already?
Yeah, that was the reason I joined it, but no. My boss told me too small.
All right.
I want you to do the international show. But if you want to, we can talk about it.
I'd like to have a haircut reserving application here in Finland.
Hi, Vitas from Supersitter. You mentioned about closing down some countries where you started. So what were the moments that you realized that it doesn't work?
Okay. So one moment was, for instance, in Singapore, when we realized that the complexity of that city actually is so huge, because there are 4 types of the nations living in it. So how the services are perceived and are done is so different. So the potential was not there, the very high costs there was adding up, and the adoption of the app by the clients didn't go as fast. We didn't got that effect of the customer bookings coming in the first few days by good percentage of the merchants. So that was the usually critical point. Or if in case of Argentina, we came to the conclusion that running the business is so complex and so not worth the headache that we managed actually to establish LTD company at the time when we were closing the operation. So that as bad it was, yeah. So that was a bad call on the doing business in the country. So there can be a varied reason, but I think the key one is always, is the element of this unique delivery business model working in this country? If it's not working, it will be just ordinary business, and you shouldn't focus on that. And there might be several reasons, like cultural ones.
Hey Tomasz, thanks for the presentation. So you mentioned that you're focused now on the US and that countries like Finland are too small for now. What about next step? When will you come in countries like Sweden, Finland, Eastern Europe, and what would be the strategy there? Rollout or acquisition?
So we have done fair amount of the acquisitions, and currently our strategy is focus and consolidating the countries that we are on, but then the other countries will be, it's still up for the discussion. Are we gonna go for more franchise model? Will we have a mixed model, joint ventures? It's still up for the decision, but our key focus is to win the US market in order to conquer the world, and then everything what we didn't manage to build ourselves or with partners, we will buy it. Yeah?
Thanks.
Like everyone
Good
else
luck.
does.